Welcome to Love Yourself First Show, Season 1, Episode 1, with our guest, Benjy Sherer, author of Feelings First Shadow Work, a simple approach to self love and emotional mastery. Benjy also designed a course, Feelings First Shadow Work, 8 Weeks to Emotional Mastery. And he's also the author of 10 Mind Hacks for quicker emotional healing. Benjy, it's an honor to have you here today as our first guest on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Nikki. I'm so glad that you reached out. It's always an honor and a pleasure to be able to chat with other people in the field and to share my thoughts, my wisdom with anyone who's willing to listen. It's beautiful that I get to do this work and have an impact on people's lives. So it's phenomenal to be able to talk about this stuff.
You do actually have an impact, and people do listen. That's how I got to know you actually from your Facebook group. That's quite big, almost 10,000 people. And I've enjoyed your videos also on your website and on your group. And that got me curious. How is it actually that you, in the first place, got involved or interested in self love?
Okay. I thought that question was going to be coming up a bit later, so we're diving right into it. I mean,
Yeah.
how I got involved in it in the first place. I mean, that's a huge story on its own. We could spend the next 2 hours talking about the journey that brought me here specifically. Um, so I don't know what other questions you're planning on asking, then how we're going to get into this, because I don't know exactly how much detail to give you on that. The the short answer, I'll start with the super short answer, and you
Okay.
can let me know if you want to know more, is um I never chose this. There was never a
Okay.
moment at which I sat down to myself and went like, you know what I want to do for a living? I want to teach self-love, or I want to teach, this, whatever that I'm doing. I know a lot of people that do, decide to themselves at a certain point, or like, oh, I want to be a coach, or I want to be a mentor, or I want to teach psychiatry, or I want to be a life coach. And there are all these people that go and specifically get that certification so that they can do it. With me, as you and I were talking about before we actually started this interview, I was in a different life and in a different world. I guess I said I was giving you the short answer. I guess I lied. Um, I was in a different life and in a different world before this all started. I was running a recording studio, and that was after years being in law school. So I was running a recording studio, and I was working at a music venue and working at this other place, which was this burlesque club. And that place is where my life changed. And the short version of that element of it is it was the first place in my life that felt like home. And I
Mm,
was at the biggest high of my life during the period that I was there. I was living my dreams, running the recording studio. And like for the first time in my life, I felt like I had everything that I wanted. It
mm,
wasn't, it was like a kind of rinky-dink self-built studio, and the burlesque club was, it wasn't grand and whatever, but I felt like I had everything that I wanted. I was living my dreams. I was recording music. I had this group of friends, this community at the burlesque club, and I started performing there as well. I started working there as a sound guy, and then I was performing, and there was just everything. Everything was going so well.
mhm.
And then a weird kind of chain of events, as well as some, I sometimes hesitate to call it emotional abuse that was going on at the burlesque club, because
Okay.
when I work with people, I know people who've gone through 1,000 times worse than what I
Yeah.
did, but nonetheless qualifies as emotional abuse. And I fell in love with someone at the time who was
Okay.
also a self-described sociopath. Like, I would never call her that, but she
Okay.
called herself that, and she had a
Yeah.
lot of issues. And so there are all these, like, I was at the peak of my emotional high in my life,
Mhm.
really feeling everything and being the biggest version of myself. And then because of that sequence of events of being in love with someone who didn't know how to love, and things got really weird there, and the emotional
Mhm.
abuse that was going on at that place, and then this kind of spiritual awakening that I started going through, it was this perfect storm of just emotional, I mean, emotional disaster that tore everything apart and forced me into this healing journey of my own. And, no one understood what I was going through. I didn't understand what I was going through. And the more that I kind of dove into this healing, and there's so much more to the story of why I started this healing, really, but the more I started diving into it, as that whole kind of perfect storm started happening, I couldn't do anything anymore. Firstly, I got sort of booted out of the burlesque club because of all of this drama. The venue that I was working at transformed into this like medical center, so that shut down. And even though the recording studio was my dream, I couldn't focus anymore. I couldn't do it. I would be sitting here in my chair and there's a band recording on the other side and this is my dream, but I'm just shaking my leg, like waiting for their take to be over so that I can say something and get back to focusing on all of my inner pain.
Okay.
So I couldn't do anything. So I shut everything down. I spent about 2 years doing nothing but trying to get myself right again, trying to heal. And as it all started going down, the more that I got into the healing, the more that it just started, we all go through this kind of dramatic thing when we start this healing. We make our big posts online, and we're being very, very dramatic in the public sphere. And on the one hand, I made some embarrassing posts, and I, was like, because we're trying so hard to affirm this new version of ourselves, and we think we're doing it for other people. We think we're like, oh, we're sharing all our life lessons so that all of you guys can know, but we're really doing it because we're so afraid of like, I don't know who I am right now. So I'm making all of these big posts and I'm trying to affirm it to myself and I'm trying to look for the validation from others. But like, so on the one hand, I was on that road, but on the other hand, I started sharing in a bunch of different places, in the online spiritual communities, in the online emotional healing communities, and all these sort of places. And it just started becoming more and more clear that I did have something to offer. And like my whole life, I struggled with this idea that I can remember going back to like 13 years old at least, that there was this paradox going on inside of me where there was a part of me that felt, and just my personality, the way that I expressed myself, the way that I spoke, the way that I looked at life, there was a part of me that knew that I was a little bit different, that I was more introspective of life than a lot of people around me, that I had something to offer and a brilliant way of speaking about it. I knew that some part of me knew that I was on this path. And some other part of me kept on saying, you arrogant asshole, how dare you think that you are, I don't even want to use the word special because I don't think that I'm special, but that was the paradox that was going on inside of me. It came sort of from like Plato's, all I know is that I know nothing. So as I started studying philosophy and realizing like at 13 years old, I'm studying philosophy and trying to learn about myself and about life and trying to discover, and most 13-year-olds aren't. So I'm raising myself up a little bit in terms of my own introspection of life. But the more that I raise myself up, the more that I also realize, well, all I know is that I know nothing. So how dare I think that I have something to offer? And it was this constant back and forth of like, but I do have something to offer, but you're arrogant for thinking that you have something to offer, but you do have something to offer, but you're arrogant for thinking that. And that's kind of the ironic paradox about this self-love journey that I've been on, because what so much of it was about was learning to accept who I am and that I do have something to offer. That it's not arrogant to recognize what you are good at. I'm not a genius. I'm not good at everything. I've never been good at maths. I've never been good at science. I've never been good at a lot of things. But this is me. This is like, when I started doing this work, it was like all of the masks, like it took me a long time to shed those masks, but that was this journey. What this journey was about is like, finally, I'm just me. I'm not
Yeah.
pretending to be anything. I'm not putting on this act. I'm not saying what other people have taught me and what I had to study out of a book and what the university's taught. I'm sharing me and my life experience and all of the things that make me particularly unique. It
Mm-hmm.
was simply my calling.
Mm.
And it took an immense amount of inner healing and an immense amount of self-love development for me to be able to stand out in public and be like, hi, this is who I am. This is what I have to offer. I'm not embarrassed to say that I do know what I'm talking about when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to how to live one's life with a sense of self-mastery and, while it sounds like a cheesy phrase, inner peace. And just to sort of finalize that story, just to point out it's a constant journey. I
It
know that I do
is.
have a lot to offer, but that doesn't mean that I'm there. There's always
Mm-hmm.
more to develop. There's always the more that I do this coaching, the more that it requires me
Mm.
to just let go of more and more and more so that I can get out of my own way,
Mm.
stop trying to pretend to be the coach and just be it because it's there, it's in me.
Yeah.
Not, um,
Benji, I love your short version. I
short
mean,
version.
yeah, it's so touching, and I appreciate how vulnerable you are. And I certainly can relate to what you shared. And I'm sure many people can too. And I admire how you took that stance, how you stood up and you embraced who you were who you are, because when you do that, you give us the permission to do the same thing. Um, I think in maybe somewhere that's what your work is all about, but you'll get to be able to tell us more about that. Uh, I'd like to know you know, how it feels now that you're uh, walking, embracing yourself when you're in your true essence. Not only how it feels, but also how your life has changed since you took that decision. Because it seems to me that there was a point where you accepted that you were awesome, even though if there was some aspects that maybe you did want to work on. So, how do you feel?
How it feels is honestly very normal. And I feel like I
Mm,
am still I'm still in the transitionary period of my life. Like I don't feel like I have quite yet stepped into that next stage. Just
mm,
in terms so there was this whole journey that was going on. That like this started probably 6 years ago by now. Like I said, when I was running the recording studio and then things started shutting down, I started going through that spiritual awakening. And that was the tunnel that I was in. And that tunnel started about 6 years ago. And let's say that like halfway through the tunnel is where I started stepping into this work. And I believe that I'm nearing the end of that tunnel, that I'm
mhm,
almost at the end, where I can really, really own this version of myself and step into a greater capacity where I can help more people
mhm.
at any given time. Like I've still been like I'm about to graduate from that universal degree that I'm in. And that's like it really was weird at the beginning because like I said, I was going through this spiritual awakening and there was I never knew his first name, but Alan Watts talked about this kind of monk. His name was D. Suzuki. And he was asked, what does enlightenment feel like? And his answer was, well, it's like regular life, but about 3 inches off the ground. And that is how I felt during that whole portion of my life when I was at the burlesque club and when my spiritual awakening started. There were just things that like I was just floating through things that I was able to do that I didn't know how I was able to do them. Like this recording studio that I built, for example. I had never used a power tool before in my life. I had no
Okay.
help doing it, and I had no training as an audio engineer. And it's not
Wow.
like I was the best engineer in town. Like I was, like I said, it was a rinky-dink studio, but I just did it.
Wow.
I dropped out of law school and I got this intuition. It was like, and it's interesting in terms of creating the recording studio and in terms of this coaching, it's like I didn't have a choice. It's like as I got towards the end of law school, my spirit and my body, my mind was so depressed with the direction that I was going in. It's like my higher self stepped in and went like, all right, Benjy, we're taking over right now. And it just led me step by. So I was on this cloud, walking through life 3 inches off the ground, just kind of following. And then everything came crashing down and led me into, you know, what they call in the spiritual community, the dark night of the soul. And that was terrible and painful. There was this kind of magic about that point of my life also. I was still very much feeling this connection with the universe, however you want to put it. Yeah, it's weird to say these days. But anyways, point being, that eventually settled down. And what this whole stepping into this next stage of me has been about was learning how to be this version of myself without needing to connect it, like without needing to feel that spiritual connection in the same way.
What do you mean?
It's kind of like, you know, there's different frequencies, different states of consciousness, and that feeling of being connected to source or to spirit or to the universe, whatever, it has its own unique feeling. So imagine that, like, before I started this journey, be like while I was in law school, or, you know, before that spiritual awakening started, I was like, I was over here, and that's where regular life and where all sort of people live. And then I got this like connection to spirituality, and oh my God, I'm feeling more and more, and I'm floating on cloud 9. That's when I was at the top, and that wasn't sustainable. And that's when, you know, everything came crashing down. Then I got all the way down to bottom. Now I'm just leveling out, and I'm learning how to be this version, this aware, more, I don't want to use the word, but more enlightened kind of version of myself without needing to feel that. So it's sort of the way that I express it sometimes is like, and for those who do believe or have any sense of spirituality and connection, it's like the universe shows you what's possible. It plucks you out and it gives you these moments where you do feel connected, where you feel that sense of oneness, and where you're kind of, you know, you're in that different place in terms of your state of consciousness. And then it drops you back down into reality, because it's your job to learn how to get back there on your own. It doesn't matter if it does it for you. It doesn't work. It shows you what's possible. It reminds you who you are in one brief moment, or for me, it was a little more than brief, but like the universe wakes you up and reminds you who you are, and then it drops you back down into regular life, and you need to figure out now how to live with this new knowledge. So when I started doing this coaching, it was actually like the first version of the course that I created was for people going through a spiritual awakening. And I was talking a lot more about spirituality, but as I started getting further and further away from my own spiritual awakening, I started feeling very awkward about that, because I'm well aware that I can never be certain about things on the spiritual realm, and I don't even know what I believe. There were lots of things that I was so certain about while I was in the midst of that spiritual awakening that now I realize were false. So I don't want to teach about things that I can't know for certain. So the emotional wellness and all of those healing techniques and everything that I learned along the path that I needed in order to get me settled into who I am, that stuff I'm certain about. I'm teaching it and I see the transformations, but the spiritual stuff, I mean, I don't know. And I don't want to be one of the people out there teaching about manifestation or teaching about, you know, opening your third eye, because I mean, I don't know if any of that is true, and I don't really know how to do it, or like, you know, I'm still on the fence when it comes to some of those higher level spiritual concepts. All that I know is that I went through this transformation, and that this emotional healing journey that I went on is something that is applicable to everyone. And that I do have something of a calling or something of a gift in doing. So I stick to what I can be certain about and do my best.
And you do it quite well. even the older videos I saw from you, it's the same essence that I feel, the same message that's encouraging. And what you're saying today is exactly what I heard in those videos. And I appreciate how authentic you are and how you gave yourself the space to change. And you admit that at one point, it was not true. And I'm saying this because there's some points in our life where we really grab on some fruits that are not. And sometimes what people will do is that they'll hate themselves for that, or they'll put themselves down. But that's not what you did, and that's not what you help your students or your community to do either.
Yeah.
What would you say to those people who have a tendency to, you know, uh, dwell on themselves or put themselves down, and rather than embracing the journey and building from it?
I think there might be two different questions in there, but in terms of the people who put themselves down and this and that, I think the main thing that I would want to say is that's not you. That's not your voice. It's the voice of all of the people who have put you down throughout your years. We are not born that way, putting ourselves down and hating ourselves. It is a defense mechanism. So when we're young and people start putting us down, we start getting used to this. They're like, when I'm not acting in a particular way, then I'm going to be judged for it and I'm going to be pushed away for it. And even like as a young kid, like let's say when you get caught by your parents and you did something wrong, you stole a cookie out of the cookie jar kind of thing. If you don't visibly show remorse and you go, I'm sorry, and especially because a lot of our parents weren't, I think every generation gets a little bit better, but depending what generation, a lot of our parents didn't know how to gentle parent, let's say. So doing something as little as stealing a cookie from a cookie jar might have gotten you really punished or blamed or yelled at or screamed at or whatever. So when that happens, if you don't visibly demonstrate remorse and I'm sorry and I shouldn't have done that, then you're going to get punished more. Your parents want you to see, your teachers or your whatever authority figures, they want to see that that you did something wrong. And they want you to feel shame for it. They want you to feel bad for it because that's how they know that you learned your lesson kind of thing. And if you don't show remorse, then you're going to get punished more for it. So what we do internally over time, for two reasons, partly just because this is what we're taught, we see it from outside of us and it becomes the programming, but also to protect ourselves. Because if we don't show remorse, then we're going to get punished worse. So we shame ourselves to protect us from other people shaming us. We think that if I give myself crap first, then other people aren't going to do it to me. Because they'll see that I feel bad about myself, but it just leads to these cycles. And this is so much of the crux of the teaching and the healing and the methods and everything that I do with my clients is learning to recognize that your sort of conscious, rational, logical brain, it's trying to keep you safe.
Trying, yeah.
But it's doing everything wrong in that sense. It's trying to avoid the immense emotions in the moment so that, because in the past, when you were vulnerable, it led to more judgment, it led to more rejection, it led to more pain. So in that moment, we develop this pattern where it's your heart is sending up this emotion and saying, hey, we really need to feel this right now because all emotions need to be felt and need to be processed. It's just like any other energy. If you eat a lot, you're taking in energy. And if you don't move your body and do things, then that energy sticks around, it becomes fat. So we have become emotionally fat in a sense because there are all of these uncomfortable emotions inside of us. It's all this energy that we're taking in. And we don't process it in the moment. We learn not to cry, not to scream, not to laugh, not to shake, not to do all of these things that your body actually needs to do in order to process these things. And so that energy gets stored. So the heart is yelling at you in those moments of saying like, hey, we need to feel this emotion. Can we process it right now? And your brain goes, no. I'm not safe in this moment to process it. If I process it, if I express it, if I allow myself to feel it, I'm going to get judged more. I'm going to get rejected more. So hold on to that emotion, and I'll come back around and deal with it later when we're safe.
Mm-hmm.
So the heart goes, okay, sure, I'll hold on to it. But we don't realize that we did that. And so we never do come back around and deal with it again when we're safe. And then it's 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the line, and we don't realize all of the ways that holding on to those emotions and succumbing to certain defense mechanisms that we needed to use in order to avoid feeling those emotions have become our regular programming. So there is this core version of you that knows who you are and knows what's special about you and knows what you want to do. And it's trying to break free every moment of every day. And then there's that asshole brain version of yourself telling you that you're not good enough, that you can't do it, or that you don't deserve love, or that all of those sort of things. And that is the programming from the outside world. It's the defense mechanisms. It's all of the things that we do to keep ourselves safe. So to sum up, the answer to your question was, you asked me, what would I say to those people who are putting themselves down? That's not you. That's the programming. It's the defense mechanisms. It's all the things that you're doing to keep yourself safe from a world that has not been kind to you. And it takes a fair bit of courage, but also the right tools, the right guidance, the right skills, the right support, and the right encouragement in order to let that go. And I think that even that is, like, for a lot of my clients, one of the biggest, like, I provide a lot of wisdom and a lot of guidance and a lot of exercises, but for a lot of them, one of the biggest things that I do is actually just giving them the kindness and the support that no one else has given them.
Yeah, that means the world.
For the first time in their life, to hear someone say, like, as I see them do the work, and sometimes they're struggling, sometimes they're doing better, but to hear someone for the first time in their life genuinely say, I am so proud of you. And even though you're still struggling, and even though you have more to learn, you are doing a fantastic job, and I love you so, like, I mean, I don't tell
you do love them.
That.
Yeah,
I do, but I don't
love them.
actually
Yeah.
say that sometimes. But sometimes that's all it really takes. Is we need to realize that we are safe. That is at the core of all of this healing. We don't feel safe. Any moment of every day, that's the fight or flight response so many of us have been in for an entire lifetime. We believe that our emotions are a sign of danger, and that there's this constant tiger standing behind us, ready to pounce on us. And that if we ever let go for a single moment, then that tiger is going to win and it's going to eat us. So we never realize that we're safe, and we're still holding on to all of this. So your heart is sending up these emotions that need to be processed, saying, you promised me you were going to deal with this when we were safe. Can we please deal with these emotions? And your brain goes, hell no, I'm not safe. There's that tiger behind me in the jungle. And one of the biggest elements of this healing is just allowing ourselves to realize, oh my God, I am safe right here, right now, even though I don't know what the future holds, even if there are all of these possible scenarios where things can possibly go wrong, right here, right now, I'm safe. If you're watching this right now, you might have a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, a lot of struggles, a lot of the spiritual stuff. I'm going to ask you right here in this moment, are you safe? Do you have a bit of food in your belly? Do you have clothes on you? Do you have a roof over your head? And whether or not, like, maybe there are some money struggles, maybe there are some relationship struggles, maybe there are things that you don't know how it's going to play out in the future. But right here, right now, at this very moment, are you safe? And if you can acknowledge and admit to yourself that despite not having everything that you want, and despite having challenges that you might need to face, that right here, right now, you are safe. That is when things can start transforming. Because we all live our lives. Sorry, I'll finish off with what we all.
I'm just approving of what you're saying. That's what I'm doing.
we all live our lives. I mean, we all have so much emotional struggles and emotional turmoil. Every single person on this planet, unless you were born in a monastery in China and lived in that place your whole life, and even then, probably still.
Yeah.
But especially in the Western modern world, like we're all carrying this emotional distress within us. And it's going to be such a cheesy and obvious thing that I'm going to say, and yet it's something that everyone needs to hear and reflect on, is that we're all living our lives trying to solve the external problems first, hoping that if we solve those external problems, then this is going to go away. That, like, I know that I have financial struggles, and I know that I have relationship struggles, and I know that my family doesn't necessarily get me, and I know that I have, these problems at work, and if I can just fix all of those things, then the anxiety will go away and the depression will go away. But we all know the corniest and most truthful thing ever, like, money can't buy happiness. And all those external things can't buy happiness, which is why people live their lives solving all of those external things. And they get to a point in their life where they've got everything settled. And they've got the wife or the husband and 2.5 kids, and they've got the white picket fence, and they've got the job, and they've got everything they want, and they're still hurting inside. So it's actually the opposite. I know that we all have external struggles, but the version of you that can solve those external struggles at their best is the version of you that first feels all right inside. So we live our lives trying to solve everything else so that we can feel better. But the truth of the matter is that we need to learn how to focus on this first. And then the rest of the things can change around us. And that is the biggest challenge of a spiritual awakening journey, at least in my experience, that the universe is asking you to take a leap of faith and focus on this first. We're worried about all of those other things. Your heart is yelling at you. Forget about the spiritual awakening part. Let's just talk about an emotional awakening.
Yeah.
Your heart is yelling at you. Please look at me, please look at me, please look at me, please look at me, please look at me. But there's all of these other things to be worried about, all of these other dangers. And committing to this inner healing journey requires a leap of faith where, and there's an interesting one. I know we're talking a lot longer than you would expect, and I apologize.
It's perfect. What you're sharing needs to be heard. It resonates with me, and I know it's resonating with the viewers right now, Benjy. It's perfect. I have chills. It's all good.
Okay. So what I had to do along my awakening journey is something that I called playing chicken with the universe.
Okay.
I started getting this inner guidance and these messages. Again, let's not go too deep into the spirituality, but just it was intuition. I started feeling what was right for me. Same as like when I dropped out of law school, or when I shut down my recording studio, and when I started on this inner healing journey, or when I started the coaching, and just a million things in between. Even, I'll talk about something else in a second, but I was getting this guidance. And none of it made a lot of sense. And I had to sacrifice and risk everything. I had to shut down my work and my studios and my dream life. And I spent 2 years going deeper and deeper into debt, following this path that I was on, because I had no choice. It was like my heart was yelling, it finally had enough. And I either had to ignore everything that was going on inside of me, or I had to risk everything. It got to a point, like, I had never used credit cards or been in debt before. Like, I had a credit card that I used only if I knew I was going to pay it off. I was building a credit kind of thing, but I'd never been in debt before. And then all of a sudden, I had to shut down all of my work and everything that I was doing and focus just on this healing, and invest in all sorts of coaches and mentors and courses and trips to places that I felt like I needed to go. And I was just that, and it wasn't just financially, but taking all sorts of personal risks of making these public statements, of cutting out other friends, of doing all of these things that, like, I was driving off a cliff, trusting that the universe is going to catch me. That's what this game of... Yes, but not immediately. Okay. And that was the scariest thing. But I'll sort of, like, what this game of chicken with the universe was, it was sort of like, as a reference to the Bible, let's say, even if you don't, this is the way that I expressed it at times, even if you don't believe in God, and I didn't at the time, I still don't believe in God, I believe in the universe, if you want to say that, but like, even if you don't believe in God, when a bush lights itself on fire and tells you to build an ark, you build a freaking ark. And I know that I'm actually confusing two Bible stories.
It's all good.
But that's just the way that I put it, because I started getting this inner guidance, and I decided to move forward with it because this was my one chance to find out if there was something more. Because if I build that ark and there's a flood, then I know there's a God. But if I don't build an ark, then I will live the rest of my life in this unknowing, silly, like whatever place, and I'll stick in this 3D human life, and I would have just been a waiter for the rest of my life or whatever. I had to take that leap of faith and do what was being shown to me, even though it required me going crazy into debt and throwing everything, all of my old friendships, all of my old life, all of my old habits and patterns and beliefs and all of my inner self-talk, and just I had to throw everything out.
That's
and
scary.
Trust. Absolutely. And just trust that it was going to lead me somewhere. And so then, as you were saying, did it catch me? Well, after 2.5 years of going through that healing journey, and then I went on this kind of like month-long trip to Hawaii, which wasn't a vacation. It was like I thought I was seeking something. I was going through this transformation. I was just waiting for something. I was waiting for guidance. I booked a ticket there, one-way ticket on 24 hours notice, because like I kind of been planning it for a bit, but there came a moment where it was just like, Benjy, it's time, go. Scared the hell out of my parents with that, by the way. They thought I was running away and never coming back. And I wasn't sure if I was at the time. I just had to follow. It's one of those things. I just got the guide, like, all right, it's time. And so when I came back, that's when I got this guidance I had to invest a hell of a lot of money in this coaching program that was designed to teach me how to become a coach. And I thought that because I was following my inner guidance and following the universe and everything, that it was just gonna work. That's it. That's, you went through it, Benjy, 2.5 years of this inner healing. Here's your sign. Here's what you are meant to be doing. And so I signed up and I started doing it, and things didn't work out right away. And I had to go back to waiting tables, and I had a huge breakdown thinking that I lost the game. I thought that I had just lost my mind. The whole spiritual awakening and everything I went through for the last 2.5 years, it turns out it's bullshit, because the universe told me to start this coaching. And here I am, and I started the coaching and I did everything that it asked of me. Why isn't it working? Why did they shut off my power? Why did I have to go to my parents and ask them for help with my electric bill so that I could go and apply at this restaurant, so that I could just go fall back into this 3-dimensional world and just like, I thought that I had lost, and I thought that that was the end, and that everything was going to be terrible. And it turned out that I just had more to learn, and there was a lot more trust to be had. And basically the way that I put it on that end is, just because your intuition or the universe or your higher self or God, however you want to put it, tells you to do something, doesn't mean that it's supposed to be easy and quick. And if it was easy and quick, then I wouldn't have learned the lessons that I needed in order to be this version of myself. It is every step of the way. You are releasing more. You're learning to trust more. That was a huge part of what me going back to the restaurant, I think, was about. Having to work as a waiter again was learning how to be this new version of myself, even when things weren't looking good. Even when the mission and purpose that I thought that I was on wasn't showing itself. Could I be this wiser, slightly more enlightened, slightly more self-loving? Could I learn how to express myself fully in an environment that wasn't necessarily conducive to it? Because it's relatively easy for me to be here and talk to you, because I know that you're going to resonate with everything that I'm saying. But when I'm standing in a restaurant filled, surrounded by people who don't necessarily get it, can I still be this version? Or do I slip back into that mask-wearing false persona that I had been living in for so long in order to appease others. And that's what self-love is about. It's learning
Mm-hmm.
how to be yourself, even when it's not easy, even when it's a challenge, and then learning how to walk away from the things that aren't conducive to you being the best version of yourself anymore,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can find your actual place in this world.
Wow, Benjy. So much emotions are stirred for you guys listening. Is it the same way? I'm sure it is. Wow. Um, I knew you were powerful, or I love what you were saying in your videos, but live like this, you're powerful, Benjy. You're powerful. And I do love you. I'm saying it.
Thank you. And
Oh
I'll tell you,
my.
just to sum up, and like, because I already said it a little bit,
But I do have
but
questions for you, eh?
thank you.
Before we finish.
Yeah, I know. But so just super quick, that
Yeah,
self-love is about learning to accept that. You're
exactly.
here telling me I'm powerful.
Yeah.
And years ago, I would have shunned away from that. Like, how dare I think that about myself? And I try not to think those things about myself. I don't walk around all day going, oh, I'm powerful, and I'm an amazing person. But to accept this about yourself, this is who I am. And
Yeah,
when I get out of my own way, like I haven't been thinking for a moment while I'm saying, I'm just saying what comes out, and I'm saying it
yeah,
with passion because
yeah. That's why it's powerful.
I let go, because I'm allowing myself to just be and to express whatever comes out without fear.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it comes across as powerful, and that's why it helps others. And for everyone watching, you have something like that inside of you too. You don't have to be me. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
teach self-love or teach this whatever. But when you learn how to push aside the persona and how to express whatever it is that's trying to come out of you, but let me first explain. You first need to get rid of fear. Because at the beginning, when if I give that guidance of just express what's on your mind, and if I say that to, let's say, a meth addict, like they don't love themselves enough yet. No
Yeah.
judgment, just an
No,
example.
no,
But like
no.
when you learn how to truly express yourself without fear,
Mm-hmm.
you change lives. You can be a
Mm.
cashier at the grocery store, but when you learn
So
how to
true.
express yourself without fear as the cashier at the grocery store, you will change lives.
Mm.
That's it.
Time and time again. Yes, authenticity. Benjy, you've showed us, how authentic you are. You've spoken about your journey, and we've all felt how we can relate to you and how we can benefit for what you have to share. I know you have a gift to share with the viewers, but before we go there, there's one element. There's many elements that I like about what you do, but one of them is that you say that we cannot heal trauma nor experience from a rational point of view. And that's why you go with feelings first. And you did mention earlier before that sometimes the heart and the mind are battling together. And from my work experience, I've noticed this. So, how is it, or why is it? I have two questions. Why is it that the rational mind cannot heal our traumas and experiences? And what's your magic? How do you help people heal themselves with their emotions first?
So the reason why we can't heal this stuff rationally is because it's not a rational problem in the first place. The logic doesn't matter. Most of the people who come to me, and let me like, I'm not saying that something like therapy or psychoanalysis doesn't have its place.
Mm-hmm.
And it is helpful for many
Mm-hmm.
people. But I think that it can only get us so far. And the people that it's most helpful for are the people that are still having trouble recognizing that there are these problems inside. Like it was a
Yeah.
huge important step for us to be able to rationally acknowledge, oh my God, I'm holding on to all of this stuff. But the problem isn't in and of itself rational. The problem is that in a moment of emotional distress, there are emotions that come up that need to be felt, that need to be processed. Just as I was saying, like, think of your emotions like food. It's energy. When you eat an apple, that physical form is translated into calories, and calories are a form of energy.
Mm-hmm.
Emotions are just a form of energy as well. So we build up these emotions in the moment, and when we don't feel safe to process them, it gets stuck inside of us. So when we eat too much and we don't move our body, we get fat. When we bring in emotions and we don't process it in the first place, it stays inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
The emotions are trapped there. And the vast majority of the people who come to me, they already know where their pain comes from. They don't need to analyze it. They know that their parents were abusive. They understand we live in a world where, we're more accepting of mental health and self-love, and we understand how, a parent telling you that you're no good as a kid affects you. Like if you said that to, you go back to the 1950s and you try telling a father from the 1950s, hey, when you tell your son that he's no good and you slap him in the face and you make him, go dig holes in the backyard, that's going to mess him up, right?
Mm.
And a 1950s dad would sling back his whiskey and go, what the hell are you talking about? I'm teaching him how to be a man.
He could slap you as well,
Yeah, exactly. So point being, and this is why therapy and the intellectual analysis was helpful, because we needed to move from that place where we didn't even recognize that doing that kind of stuff was harmful and how it would stunt our growth. And we needed to come to recognize, oh my God, that stuff really does tear you apart inside and really does split up your psyche and all that sort of stuff. But once you get there, there's no more intellectual analysis that's going to help you. The example that I like to use is like, imagine that you went into a doctor's office with a headache. You told him, doctor, I have this headache and it's been there for years and it's not going away. And let's say the doctor sat down with you and spent 2 hours, 3 hours explaining to you, okay, here are all the biological mechanisms that are going on. Here's why you have a headache. And you were taking notes and you figured it all out and you went by the end, oh my God, I finally get it. Would that get rid of the headache? No. It would be great to know. It would be very helpful and you wouldn't hate yourself as much anymore because, oh, it's normal or it makes sense. And that is one of the biggest benefits of therapy. And one of the biggest benefits, like along the lines, I teach people, I don't like diving into labels. I think the labels are harmful for us. General anxiety disorder, clinical depression, borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder. I think that those labels keep you trapped and are very harmful.
They do, yeah.
But they were very helpful and necessary for a long time. When those terms were first created, they were freedom. Because until then, no one was willing to talk about mental health and no one understood, why am I in pain every moment of every day? And giving it a name, giving it a title made it acceptable. It made us able to have this conversation around it. So this has been the progression through complete darkness and ignoring mental health completely to an intellectual understanding of it, and then to a post-intellectual understanding of it, because the real problem is just a lifetime's worth of unresolved emotions. What I explain it to people is you've got a pool of 10,000 liters worth of unresolved pain inside of you. And we need to learn how to start releasing it. And in order to release it, you don't need to understand it. You don't need to analyze it. You need to learn how to finally feel it. Because your heart has been sending up these messages for a lifetime saying, please look at me, please look at me, please look at me, please look at me, please look at me. And your brain goes, but I'm in danger. I can't look at you right now. If I look at you, that tiger is going to pounce and everything is going to be terrible. So we move up into the logic mode, into the problem-solving mode. But that actually perpetuates a negative cycle. Because let's just say, and this happens all the time, let's say you go to bed feeling okay. You go to bed with a smile on your face, you had a great day. And you wake up in the morning and you're feeling a bit of anxiety. You're feeling a bit of sadness. You're feeling whatever it is. Standard reaction, let's say you even live with someone, you have a spouse and you wake up the next morning and go, oh, how'd you sleep? How are you feeling? And you go like, you know what? I'm not feeling so good today. I'm having some anxiety. First words out of their mouth are likely going to be, oh, well, why is that? Thing is, there is no reason. There is no real reason right here, right now. You went to bed feeling good. Nothing has changed in between when you went to bed feeling good and when you woke up. But when they ask that question, now you start searching. Where in my life can I find a problem? Am I feeling this anxiety because of work? Am I feeling it because of my relationship? Am I feeling it because of some chore that I need to do today? So your brain moves to that and it starts analyzing. Oh, it looks for something to attach the pain to because it wants to stay in control. Because if it's not in control, then you're now in danger and it believes the tiger is going to win. So it searches for something to attach the pain to.
Mm.
And what happens when your brain searches for something to attach the pain to? It finds something. Doesn't matter what it is. It just needs to attach it to something so that now you can try and solve the problem. Because you don't know where the anxiety is coming from. But if you can attach it to this problem in your external life, then you can focus on trying to solve that problem. And you hope that, oh, once I solve the problem, the anxiety will go away, not recognizing that the anxiety didn't come from there. It came from inside. It was just there. So that's why the intellectual analysis can't help, because all that's going on is unresolved emotional energy trying to move through you. It's trying this. That's kind of the ironic secret of when you do start learning how to feel your emotions, when you learn how to let go and allow the emotion to move through you, those moments of emotional distress, that's where the healing happens. That's your body finally going, oh, okay, I'm letting go of a little bit. I'm letting go of a little bit. And you can learn to get to a point where you're actually grateful for those days when you're not feeling so good, because if you stop resisting it, then you know that at the end of each emotional storm, you're going to be better and healthier and happier and stronger, because the whole point of that emotional storm, I mean, even, and this is the first time I'm thinking of this, even using that metaphor, a storm or a rain is when the evaporation moves up to the sky and it becomes clouds, and the pressure builds up and builds up and builds up until it rains down.
Beautiful. Yeah.
That's what's going on inside of us. The emotions are building up and building up and building up and building up, and eventually it needs to rain. But what happens with us, and this is the cycle that we get into, is when it starts raining, when we're in that emotional storm, in that moment of emotional distress, we think that it means that something's wrong. So we start looking for a problem. We start trying to solve a problem. So while it's raining and it should be a moment of release, what we're actually doing is we're adding more problems to the pile, because we think that that rain means that, oh my God, something is terrible. Yeah.
Basically,
yeah, no, and then I guess you asked, like, what's the magic or how do we do this? It's about
that's what I was going to ask.
It's about stopping this cycle that's going on. So one of the main things that I talk about is the three elements of our experience of reality: thoughts, emotions, and sensations. There is nothing that you can experience in this world that doesn't fall into one of those categories. While you're watching me right now, there's the actual physical sensations of the visual, you know, the proton? No, not proton. Anyways, the visual sensation that's hitting you. Photon, yeah, thank you. The photons hitting your eyes, and that's the visual sensation. You got the sound waves that are hitting your ears, and that's vibrating your eardrums, and that's sensation. Now, those sensations get sort of translated by the brain, and there's interpretation, there's an understanding there, and those are the thoughts. And at the same time, there's emotions. You're happy, you're sad, you're afraid, you're whatever. Everything that we experience is one of those things. And there's this constant cycle going on between them, which I was already kind of touching on a little bit, that when we feel an uncomfortable emotion, we move up into thinking mode. And we're trying to solve it from up here, because we've lost our ability to just stay there for a moment. And so we start thinking about it. We rationalize it. We look for a problem to solve. And as we do that, we find a problem. And so it becomes a problem. And so all of those thoughts, we do all of these things. We tense up our body. We tighten our jaw. You stick the tongue up against the roof of your mouth, or you start shaking your leg, or you feel that tightness in your chest, or that turning feeling in the pit of your stomach. So all of those thoughts get sort of translated into these sensations in your body. And those sensations in your body send this message to your subconscious mind that you're in danger. It keeps you in the fight or flight mode. Being in the fight or flight mode creates more emotions of fear and worry and anger and frustration and all those sort of things. And then those emotions need to be justified and analyzed, so we think more about them, and it creates more of that sensation in the body. It creates more of the emotions, and around and around and around we go. And the cycle works in both directions, by the way. It's kind of like a triangle. It's like that recycling symbol.
Yeah.
So everyone, like, there's two-way arrows on every side. So thoughts, emotions, sensations, and each are manipulating the other realms. And as one little side note, I think this is very important for people. A lot of teachers and healers, whoever it is, we talk a lot about how thoughts control your emotions. There's some truth to that. Like I said, the cycle works in both directions. Absolutely. And we can, using affirmations and positive thinking and learning how to stop this negative thoughts, we can help ourselves emotionally a little bit. And that is a part of what I deal with people. But it is much more true that your emotions manipulate your thoughts. When you happen to be feeling good, you're in that moment of joy, even let's just say it's because you took a drug, you took some MDMA, you took some mushrooms, and you happen to be feeling that connection with the universe in that moment. You're having a psychedelic experience. When you happen to be in that positive emotion, you have positive thoughts. You're very optimistic. You think that things can't possibly go wrong. You have that. And when you happen to wake up and you're feeling bad, then you think negative thoughts and you think poorly of yourself. So people ignore the fact that, like, your emotions are much more powerful at controlling your thoughts than your thoughts are at controlling your emotions. Anyways, point being, there's this constant cycle happening between your thoughts, your emotions, and your sensations. And what the magic here is really about, or what I teach and what I help people with, is isolating those three elements of your experience of reality so that you can learn how to catch your negative thoughts and learn what to do with them so that those thoughts don't need to create more fear and more of that tension inside of your body. And learning how to recognize the tension inside of your body and learning what to do with that, so that you can allow yourself to experience that turning feeling in the pit of your stomach without it making you think that something is wrong and without it creating more fear. That's all it is. It's a turning feeling in the pit of your stomach. It's uncomfortable, but it doesn't mean that something is wrong and that something terrible is about to happen. So you can prevent that from creating more emotions and creating more thoughts. And you can learn how to feel a moment of sadness or a moment of anger, or a moment of fear, and recognize it for what it is. And thereby, because usually that emotion of fear will create more thoughts, but you're going to recognize, oh, I'm afraid right here, right now, which means that I'm going to have more fearful thoughts, which means that the fearful thoughts that I'm having right now aren't real. They're not accurate. They're not a real representation of the world outside of you. And on top of it, they're not helpful, they're not necessary, and they're not appropriate. So it used to be the fact that in a moment of fear, I would have all of these other thoughts. But now it's going to be, look at that. I'm feeling fear right now. So, and it's okay. I don't need to change it in the moment. I just need to stop resisting it, and it's okay. And then prevent it from becoming thoughts. So we stop that cycle and we learn how to handle each of those various elements individually. And then we learn how to get out of our own way. So in terms of, discovering the reasons why we do these things, there will be some understanding that comes along with this healing. But to put it super short, when it comes to this dialogue that we're having, trying to figure out where this stuff is coming from, we just want to be the listener. We just want to show our brains and our subconscious mind that it is safe to express itself. And it doesn't matter if these thoughts are real or like if they're just, we need to learn how to get out of our own way and how to start rebuilding this connection between our conscious and our subconscious mind, so that that inner guidance, that part of you right here that doesn't operate through rationality and logic, but that operates from actually much more powerful inner knowing and much more powerful connection to the world around you. Your heart knows a hell of a lot more than your head does. Your head is a coward and an asshole, and it's working with a very limited amount of information. Your heart is working actually with much more information, but it's information that can't necessarily be understood rationally because it is that much grander. It's like trying to portray a three-dimensional object onto a two-dimensional piece of paper. You can draw it really nice and it might look three-dimensional, but it's not. Your heart has access to a lot more than your head does. So your head is trying to interpret what your heart is saying from a much smaller vantage point. And we need to learn how to rebuild that connection with what's going on and how to eliminate the fear and all the defense mechanisms that get in the way so that we can follow what our hearts are really telling us. And the thing is that your brain can be programmed and is getting programmed every moment of every day. You are constantly connecting neurons and building neural pathways. That's what muscle memory is about for an athlete, right? The first time you swing a baseball bat, it's really awkward and you don't know how to do it. The millionth time that you swing a baseball bat, oh, you've created those patterns so firmly in your brain that it's just, you just do it. So your brain can be programmed and is programmed every moment of every day. Your heart, on the other hand, cannot be programmed. And this is where anxiety and depression and all this inner conflict comes from. Because we're trying to follow this up here. And your heart is yelling at you saying, go left, go left, go left, go left, go left, because I know who you are and I know what's real. And your brain is going, but the last time I went left, it led to pain. So I'm going to keep going right. And the thing is, when we follow our brain, we need to shut down the heart. And that leads to inner conflict because the heart can't be programmed. You can't convince your heart to want what you don't want, to love what you don't love. It knows what it knows. It wants what it wants. That's all there is. So that creates this inner conflict because we're trying to follow there. And it goes the way that I word. It's like one part of you wants to go left, one part of you wants to go right, one part of you wants to just sit down and cry. And that creates anxiety because it's that inner storm that's happening. But when you learn how to follow your heart first, you can program your brain to get in line with that. You can program it to learn that, oh, this is the right way. And then you get rid of the inner conflict. And when all three parts of you, your head, your heart, and your gut, are aimed in the same direction, you can't imagine the power that you have as a person. Because imagine that, like, you're driving a horse team. And one horse is trying to go left, one horse is trying to go right, and one horse is trying to go back. You have no momentum. You can't get anywhere. That's what's happening inside of all of us. We stay stuck because we're fighting against ourselves. But when you train those horses to all run in the same direction, holy shit, you can move so far, so fast, and have so much power. And that is what this inner healing and a spiritual awakening is all about. And that's what leads to the people that like talking about manifesting and this and that. That's what it's about. Get all of your energy together, aim it in a particular direction, learn how to take action, and learn how to keep your heart in that forward momentum towards a goal that it knows is true. There's going to be challenges along the way. It's not going to be easy just because your heart tells you to do something that, oh, I guess it's just going to be easy. You're going to need to push through. You're going to need to have the grit and the perseverance to push through all the fears and all the challenges and to let go of all the shit that you've been holding on to. But that's where this healing happens. Get all of your three brains in order, your head, your heart, and your gut. Get them aimed in the same direction. Allow your heart to lead the way because it can't be programmed. And then your life can start playing out in ways that you never imagined. And that's the magic.
Is magical, inspirational also. Benjy, I knew you could talk for hours. And I would love you to continue talking, so much longer because you have a great impact and your analogies just make sense. But comes a point where we do have to say goodbye.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm struggling here because I have a last question for you, which I'll ask you to go with.
I promise to try and keep it short. I promise.
I know you'll try. So I'll ask you to bring it to the shortest version because you've already shared so much. You were generous with us today, and we appreciate it. And after that, I'll invite you to talk about your gift because many people want to know you, know more about how you could help them, and how feelings can be first or must be first, and how they can tap into their heart. So here's my question. Many women, as they have their children, really spend a lot of time investing in their children. They forget who they are and wake up one day. A kid may have left home, or there's teenagers there, and they look at themselves in the mirror wondering, who the heck am I? Because they forgot to take care of themselves along the way. What special message would you have to tell or say to moms that need to finally love themselves, that need the permission to do it?
I love the way that you finished that question, because I think it segues perfectly into my short answer to this, which is self-love is not selfish. It is absolutely necessary. We cannot do anything. No, we cannot do anything. We cannot be the best for other people. If you want to continue to be the best mother that you can be, the best wife, the best whatever, just like, we've all developed this idea that, oh, if I focus on myself, I'm doing something wrong. It's not true. You need to pull away from things for a moment, focus on yourself, rediscover who you are, so that you can be that best version of yourself for everyone else. On an airplane, when the oxygen masks come down, they tell you, put on your own mask before helping others.
Yeah.
It's the same with the emotional healing. Self-love is not selfish. It is absolutely necessary. And when you learn self-love, you will transform everyone's life around you. Doesn't matter if your kids are grown up already. Do it now. They will see that change in you. You will be able to show them how to see that change in themselves. You will be the role model for everyone else in your life, because you finally realize, you know what? I want to figure out who I am. And that will help your kids figure out who they are. So do it.
That's perfect. That's the essence of this summit, where my vision is that people love themselves, embrace who they are, accept themselves, and share that love with others, so that we are in this, I don't want to say enlightened place, but in this more caring, welcoming place where we can just all be ourselves. Benjy, this was amazing. Now,
Thank you.
I know you were already generous,
Yeah.
but I'd like you to tell us about the gift that you have for our viewers, please.
So it's something I'm more than happy to do. So I do have 2 books that are out. The first is called Feelings First Shadow Work, Simple Approach to Self-Love and Emotional Mastery. And then there's kind of like the partner book to it in the sequel, which is called 10 Mind Hacks to Quicker Emotional Healing. So the first one, Feelings First Shadow Work, that's the overarching perspective. This is where I give my philosophy of what this healing is really all about, as well as the kind of like, I outline the steps that I take with my clients and how we really go about doing this healing. And the book was designed to be as easy to read and to get through as possible. There's no deep shadow work, psychological language that is hard to, like, a 12-year-old can read this book and get everything out of it. So that's the book that I'm sharing with you guys here today. There's going to be a link. I haven't put together the page yet at the time of this recording, but I think the link is going to be benjysherercoaching.com/ what is this? Love Yourself First. That's
Yes.
So LYF gift, Love Yourself First gift. That's going to be the link. And there you'll just type in your name and your email address. It'll give you access to, I'm going to give you guys a bunch of things. So first, you're going to get the Feelings First Shadow Work book. You'll get it either as a PDF that you can like download, or you can just read it through the website. You also get access to the audiobook version of it, narrated by me. So it's, I know what I'm talking about. Also included there's going to be 10 guided meditations. There's one for anxiety and one for sleep and one for, I don't even remember what there are there. And there's also 5 kind of subliminal programming or manifesting audio tracks, however you want to put it. And I think there's also access to one of my webinars called Healing Feelings First.
Okay.
So you're going to get all of that. You just show up at the link, type in your name and your email address. And for anyone who does it, like I'm giving all this, I'm so happy to offer it. I'm thrilled
Thank
to
you.
share my message. I'm just going to ask one thing in return from anyone who bothers doing this. If you get the book, if you either read it or listen to it and you enjoy it, please go leave a review for it on Amazon. Because it's very helpful. There's such a small percentage of people who bother to do that, and it's very much appreciated, very helpful. So share your thoughts, and I hope that you get a lot out of it.
They will, most definitively, as we all did today. Benjy, this interview was beyond any expectation. You're vivid, smart, and compassionate. You're an example of self-love. It was, as I mentioned in the beginning, but with a new sense, a new meaning, a new experience. It was an honor to interview you. And there's so many more questions I want to ask you. So in another season, I'm going to reach out to you. So
I
you
will
come
be,
back
I will be
again.
thrilled. Yeah. And I'll
Amazing.
tell you, I've done, decent few interviews. Yeah, this conversation really did go great. This was a lot of fun. I think we dove into a lot of great things, and I do think people will get a lot out of this. So thank you for having me.
They will. They will. I know. I know. Shivers. So many shivers. So for all of you viewers, thank you so much for taking the time to listening to Benjy, for embracing feelings first. I will put the link for you to his free gifts. Benjy, once again, you're so generous. Thank you to you all, and see you for the next episode. Bye-bye.